Cressidium is a near-paradise world settled during SecCom. During the revolution to overthrow the right-wing authoritarian rule, some of those committee had fled to Cressidium and cut it off entirely from the OmniNet, leaving it isolated and unaware of the events going on in the overthrow of SecCom. When ThirdCom came around and eventually began their exploration, they discovered Cressidium once more. Although Cressidium, the last time they had seen Union, they were a heavily authoritarian right-wing fascist state. So they were a little bit hostile at first, as they discovered that Union had become more egalitarian. The LSA, the Leandric States Alliance, invite Union to land and are interested in rejoining the rest of the galaxy and rejoining Union. Ambassador Banerjee is set to oversee negotiations on this mission on the Rio Grande, a light naval vessel led by Captain Ferris. Not wanting to send their ambassador to the planet alone, they are given a military escort in the form of a Union Navy and a unit of Lancers, fresh from the Academy. The Lancers meet the crew, as well as Union's ambassador spending time with the naval soldiers aboard the vessel. Even listening to Staff Sergeant Garcia's war stories, playing Cap-Cat with Lieutenant King, and trying out some vintages, some very obscure ones from Banerjee, of which they are willing to share. After their journey, they spend about a week in orbit, waiting on negotiations now that the Vestan sovereignty, one of the other major powers of the planet, has come to the table. The crew grows antsy, though. Captain Ferris has accompanied Ambassador Banerjee to the planet, and all they can do is wait. A ship-wide alarm resounds. All hands to action stations. I repeat, all hands to action stations. This is not a drill. Set condition to 1 Azure. Ready away ships for debarkation. All Marine and pilot elements report to your assigned flight decks for briefing and assignments. The Lancers are briefed by Lieutenant Kim. Vestan sovereignty forces have attacked Nova Elysia, where negotiations are happening. They are to be sent planet-side, dropped off with a dropship, and to report to FOB Saber, a forward operating base in Nova Elysia. From there, they will rescue Captain Ferris and Ambassador Banerjee. This is explicitly a rescue mission. Since Cressidium is in fact not yet part of Union, they are not allowed to engage in military operations. And the rules of engagement are not to fire unless fired upon. The Lancers suit up, and one of their engineers, Jewel, guides them to their dropship. And away they go. Fritz, Doc, Night Owl, and Fjortha are set planetside. Fritz has been anxious, wanting to get to planetside after a life spent in space. Doc has desired to see the state of LSA and observe all of it. And Night Owl has been preventing her own mech from, well, it's a little bit unstable, let's just say. And Fjortha had expressed her own concerns with the LSA with Lieutenant Kim, worried about the situation planetside. And those worries seem to have been vindicated today. During the drop, the pilot began initiating invasive maneuvers. It seems that they're under attack, and ultimately they fail to dodge a salvo of STA missiles from the planet's surface. The dropship crashes, and luckily the mechs are intact. Fritz investigates the pilots and finds both had perished in the crash. Taking their tags, he returns to his mech as Doc and Fjortha scan the area. They discover that all comms are down, only met by a harsh crackling static. The sounds of sirens and missiles provide grim ambience as they try to get their bearings. They don't wait long, as a Vestan sovereignty patrol encounters them in the middle of the plaza. Holding their position, they wait to see what happens, and they're fired upon. They've picked a fight with the wrong mechs. Night Owl starts the bombardment, beginning her advance and launching a salvo of attacks at the enemies. Doc advances as well. Fjortha and Fritz hold back for a moment until they recognize they're outnumbered, and Fritz hacks into one of the enemy mechs, discovering a TAC map in one of its systems. Downloading it to his mech, he finds where FOB Saber is. Downloading it to his mech, this will certainly come in handy later. Noticing that there are more mechs inbound, including an artillery mech, Doc adjusts course. He blitzes and flies across the entire scene towards the artillery mech and begins his dissection of the target. As more mechs come inbound to save their artillery, it's too late. The surgical precision of Doc takes it in only a moment before he flees to return back to the melee with his friends. His friends seem to be holding off the Vestans quite well, with Night Owl continuing blowing up as much of the terrain and the enemy mechs as she can, while Fjortha continues hacking, including one of the melee mechs, which spends almost the entire time malfunctioning until he overheats and explodes. As the Vestans continue their advance, they realize that they've lost too much and sound a retreat. During their tactical retreat, the Lancers take the moment to flee before more reinforcements can arrive. Nova Elysia would be beautiful on any other day. The towering skyscrapers, glowing lights, and magnificent displays are contrasted with sirens, bombs, craters, and a thick smoke that covers the whole city. Marching through, they come across some soldiers. Seeing as they aren't in chassis, they scan the area and recognize LSA uniforms. They're calling for help. It seems there's hurt civilians on the bus, which is damaged, and they're far from the shelter. Scanning the air for parts, they salvage some and are able to escort the soldiers and the civilians towards the shelter. Although they do pick up that there are enemy mechs along the way, they elect to take a more subtle and stealthy approach, trying to avoid them and guiding the bus away from the Vestan sovereignty forces. Using some of their own creativity, scanning and whatnot, they do have managed to find a path that does involve avoiding conflict altogether and get the civilians to the shelter safely. The soldiers then try to get a look at FOB Saber from the vantage point they have and see that, unfortunately, one of the depots ahead that the Vestan sovereignty has set up. And as they advance to that point, Union sends in another dropship. But unfortunately, one of the artillery mechs set up at that depot fires a salvo of missiles at it and brings it down. Seeing that they don't have any other choice but to go through here and seeing the damage that mech has been causing, they decide that it's time to advance and take that out. However, from their vantage point, it is clear that there is an alternative approach to the depot where they can approach from the side, which possibly can leave them undetected. Although their approach was spotted, they throw themselves towards the missile-launching fiend. A sentinel leaps out from the shadows and causes Doc's mech to fall off course, where he'd normally be on the artillery mech in a moment. He's forced to take an alternative approach. Fritz and Fjertha send out signals to jam and overheat nearby enemies. They continue their approach of technical attacks, also launching a myriad of drones at the enemies, giving them more than enough to deal with while their systems are overloaded. Night Owl blows up in mere moments the first mech she comes across and continues firing upon the remaining mechs. As they discover an invisible mech that is destroying their backline, attacking Night Owl and Fritz, Fjertha takes the moment to invade its system, repeatedly overloading it until it overheats and eventually is knocked prone to the ground, unable to function for long periods of time where he is shot down. Doc eventually regains his composure, jumps over the depot's storage container, and destroys the Vestan's Rainmaker that had been causing so many problems for the Union forces coming inbound to Cressidium. After that, it's just cleanup as the party continues to wipe out all Vestan forces at the depot, where they regroup and repair and before advancing forward to FOB Saber. Their mechs in critical condition, some of them overheating, some of them on their last bit of structure and not able to be repaired without access to a mass-scale printer, they find a clear path to FOB Saber. With their Union status, they're able to enter the base, and it doesn't take long to see a familiar face. Staff Sergeant Garcia from Rio had made it safely there. As Chief Engineer, Vanna helps them with their repairs and help them print off new systems and weapons. Lieutenant Kings advances their licenses and offers them a few more armaments. They accept the aid and take the moment to get a damn drink.